Hello and welcome to the 370Z front spindle installation for your 240Z, 260Z, or 280Z. Here we have the Track Attack 370Z front spindles. You'll notice that they are modified to fit our Track Attack kit, and they do come with the two ears, both for our 370Z brake kit and our Willwood brake kit. It comes with a mount here to mount your 370Z bolt-on wheel bearings, as well as the holes threaded and drilled for your knuckle bolts. Now you'll notice that this Track Attack version does have this spud welded in for the upper control arm bracket. We usually weld these in now. However, if you wanted to leave it unwelded, you're welcome to email us and we will leave it unwelded for you to weld it in once you go to the install. Now with the hardware, you're going to get 8 12mm bolts. You're going to be getting 8 of these washers, and that's all there is for hardware. Now, if you did not purchase a 370Z front spindle with the Track Attack kit, that spud is still included, and if you wanted to reuse your factory, you'd slip the spud in and weld it around, and you would be able to reuse your factory front spindle if you're going with a 4-lug setup or wanted to reuse the factory style brakes. In this case, we're going to use these 370Z wheel bearings for this customer with the 370Z front spindle for his Track Attack kit. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pop out this dust shield that's on the back, and then we're going to line up those 4 bolts and bolt those together. So the easiest way to do this is taking a screwdriver, flipping the wheel bearing over, and popping it out. So once those covers are out of the way, set them aside or throw them in the trash. You're not going to be needing to reuse them. We're going to align up the 4 bolts to the wheel bearing here. And then once those are lined up, you're going to take your washer along with the socket head bolt and begin threading those through. And then once you got all those hand tight, you're going to go ahead and final torque them to 58 to 72 foot-pounds per the Nissan installation manual. So you'll notice here that these are all nice and torqued. And finally, we have the dual caliper setup. We have the 370Z calipers on this way and the Willwoods on the other way. Now, because for this install, we're going to quick do the 370Z brakes first, we're going to point that towards the back. Before we get to the car, we do want to point out, now if you have the 370Z front spindles for the strut style design, or if you're running a front suspension kit, or you're purchasing just the 370Z spindles themselves, you'll notice that this would be the design on that. The red ones were just for the Track Attack version. So this one, you'll notice that we have them taped off from our warehouse if you were to weld in coilovers. But this customer opted for us to weld in his coilovers for him, so we went ahead and did that and powder coated. Now this option is available on our website as part of our welding service package, where we weld and powder coat them for you as one complete unit. Now these still have the dual caliper options for the 370Z factory and the Willwood options. Now installation is pretty much the same, except instead of the upper control arm spud, these get mounted to a coilover. So we're going to go ahead and quickly install these coilovers onto here. We do recommend using a silicone lubricant, so it does make it going in easier. So now once all those are installed, you can go ahead and install the 370Z wheel bearing the same way as you would with the 370Z Track Attack version. You're going to use the same washers and the socket head bolts and install the wheel bearing the same way and torque them to the same values as before. Now you can see here we took off the end cap before installing it, and install is pretty much the same thing. You're going to slip the socket head bolt through the washer and you can thread those on, and then you can tighten them in. And installing this to the car is also the same way. However, now that you don't have the upper control arm, you just use the bottom to mount it to the knuckle, and then the top would mount to the strut. You can see here we remove the upper control arm bracket assembly. We're going to reuse these knuckle bolts, and then the knuckle bolts are going to go through the knuckle, and then you're going to go ahead and install the knuckle bolts. Then you're going to loosen up the nuts that go on top of the camber plates and install the camber plates to the strut itself. And then you'll go ahead and tighten those down. So this is how you would install the 370Z front spindle if you were not running the Track Attack kit, and if you were just using a regular front suspension kit, or if you purchased the 370Z front spindle by itself. Now the 370Z front spindles for the regular kits are still universal between the 370Z calipers and the Willwood calipers, and they are reversible front and back depending on which caliper option you want to go with. And so we're back to the Track Attack install. You're going to take your 3/4 socket and remove the cotter pin as well as the lock nuts on the top, or the castle nuts on the top. Next thing we're gonna do is gonna slip the upper control arm ball joint through the upper control arm spud on the 370Z front spindle. Kind of hand tighten that castle nut, and then from the bottom, using an extension, you're gonna run your 3/4 inch socket and tighten that to 55 foot-pounds. Then you're gonna go ahead and reinstall your cotter pin, and then you're gonna go ahead and reuse your knuckle bolts on the bottom to attach the knuckle to the 370Z front spindle. And then you're gonna go ahead and torque those and reference the torque settings on the knuckle video. And that's how you install the 370Z front spindle on both the Track Attack kit and the non-Track Attack regular McPherson strut version. You'll notice here that we're gonna flip these spindles over on one of the brake kit installation videos so we can show you how you're able to flip-flop back and forth depending on what brake kit you use. Even though our 370Z front spindle completely replaces the factory S30 front spindle, one thing to note is the ball joint position in relation to the face of the wheel is the same as factory, along with the face of the wheel, and the angular dimension of the strut is also the same as factory.